menjaga kualitas kegiatan pembelajarannya. Jurusan PWK FTUB menyiapkan sarana perkuliahan yang menunjang kenyamanan setiap sivitas akademiknya. Fasilitas yang tersedia di antaranya adalah ruang dosen, musola, dan 10 ruang pembelajaran yang didukung oleh dan LCD proyektor di setiap ruangan. Ruang pembelajaran terdiri dari satu ruangan konferensi, 5 ruang kelas kapasitas 40 orang, satu lab komputer berisi 40 unit komputer, ruang baca berisi pustaka pendukung bidang keilmuan, dan 2 ruangan sidang kapasitas 70 orang. Ruang studio digunakan sebagai tempat kegiatan mata kuliah studio, di mana mata kuliah ini merupakan ciri khas di dalam jurusan PWK sendiri. Pada mata kuliah studio, mahasiswa PWK diajarkan dan dilatih mengerjakan tugas perencana wilayah di dunia profesional, sehingga mahasiswa PWK sejak di bangku perkuliahan sudah akrab dengan dokumen perencanaan.
Tangguh banget.
Jurusan PWK FTUB sendiri memiliki 6 mata kuliah studio yang masing-masing bisa diambil di setiap semester secara bertahap sejak semester 2. Studio pertama adalah Studio Permukiman Kota, Studio Perencanaan Desa, Studio Perancangan Kota, atau studio transportasi yang bisa dipilih salah satu, dan yang terakhir adalah studio perencanaan wilayah. Semua studio ini dimaksudkan agar mahasiswa PWK Fakultas Teknik Universitas Brawijaya memiliki kemampuan dan keterampilan yang cukup untuk dapat berperan membangun masyarakat di bidang kewilayahan. Karena itu, mari rapatkan barisan dan persiapkan langkah mengukir sejarah membangun Indonesia bersama jurusan Perencanaan Wilayah dan Kota Universitas Brawijaya.
Dear keynote speakers, lecturers of Urban and Regional Planning, Faculty of Engineering, Universitas Brawijaya, and all participants, good afternoon. Welcome to the 3-in-1 webinar program with the theme of spatial development and rural urban transformation. I am Kathleen Meira Berta, who will serve as your master of ceremony for today's event. First and foremost, before we jump to the main agenda, I would like to welcome Mr. Wahid Hashim, STMT PhD, as the head of Department of Urban and Regional Planning, Faculty of Engineering, Universitas Brawijaya, Ms. Ismu Rini Dwi Ari, STMT PhD, as the Deputy Head Department of Urban and Regional Planning, Faculty of Engineering, Universitas Brawijaya, Professor Joe Ravets, the Co-Director and of the Center for Urban Resilience Energy, School of Environment, Education and Development, Manchester University, United Kingdom, who will be our first keynote speaker, alongside with Mr. Sumedi Andono Mulyo, MA PhD, the Director of Spatial Planning and Disaster Management, Ministry of National Development Planning, who will be our second keynote speaker, and also the honorable lecturer and all participants. I hope you all have a very good day as I do and share the same excitement upon today's webinar event. Ladies and gentlemen, now we move on to the next agenda, which is the tribute to Indonesia's national anthem, Indonesia Raya. Please pay attention as it will begin immediately. Thank you for paying tribute to Indonesia Raya. Ladies and gentlemen, now I will give the floor to Mr. Abdul Wahid Hashim as the head of Department of Urban and Regional Planning, Faculty of Engineering, Universitas Brawijaya, to give the opening remarks as well as opening this event officially. To Mr. Wahid, the floor is yours, sir.
Kathleen. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The Honorable Prof. Joe Ravets from University of Manchester, UK, the Honorable Dr. Andes Sumedi Andono Mulyo, MA PhD from Ministry of National Development Planning, National Development Planning Agency, lecturers of Regional and Urban Planning Department, Faculty of Engineering, Universitas Brawijaya. All students of Regional and Urban Planning Department, Faculty of Engineering, Universitas Brawijaya, and all of the participants of the webinar of 3-in-1 program, both in Zoom and YouTube. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, Good afternoon to all of you in Indonesia and good morning, Prof. Joe Raffet in UK. I am pleased to welcome you to the webinar of 3-in-1 program. The main theme of this 3-in-1 program is rural-urban linkage through spatial development and also rural-urban transformation. It's an especially great moment for us to have such a world-class speaker and practitioner for our webinar. A warm welcome to all of you, as we all know that Indonesia and all countries in the world are facing the COVID-19 pandemic since last year, and it became a global crisis. Through the problems of urban areas, nowadays the problems of urban area are not only a problem at the local or national level, but has also become a global problem. This urban problem is also one of the themes contained in the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. One of the issues raised to be discussed in this event in the development of the city and its suburb, which require alignment and adjustment so that the city and its hinterland areas can develop synergistically, environmentally, economically, and socially. Due to its pandemic, Universitas Brawijaya adapt in every aspect, both in academic and non-academic activities. As part of our adaptation to academic activities, we have arranged online lectures and discussion since the beginning of the pandemic breakout. In this 2021, our department has chance to hold 3-in-1 program that consists of guest lectures and webinar. This program is also one of the form of our adaptation of this pandemic. In particular, this program is designed to organize information technology-based lecture activities by involving the domestic and foreign experts or academics as one of the strategies in improving the quality of learning at Universitas Brawijaya. So, in this such condition, we who came from various places could still meet virtually at this conference to enrich our insight and knowledge. Through this program, I hope we will get that knowledge and broaden our perspective with a better understanding of contemporary issues in research and practice related to spatial development and rural-urban transformation. I think that's all from me. I wish you all to stay happy and healthy during this pandemic situation. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Mr. Wahid, for the speech. Ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, 3-in-1 webinar event is officially started. Ladies and gentlemen, before moving forward, let's take some moment to pray. The prayer will be led by Dr. Fadli Usman. To Dr. Fadli, the floor is yours, sir.
Okay, thanks for this time. I would like to all of Muslim to make pray here, and I will lead you. Auzubillahi minasyaitonir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala asrofil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi washabihi ajmain. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antas samiul alim. Rabbana innana sami'na munadiya yunadi lil iman an aminu bi rabbikum fa amanna. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina adzabannar. Subhanaka rabbikal rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamu alal mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
Amin.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fadli, for leading the prayer. Ladies and gentlemen, this webinar is one of the 3-in-1 program series, which conducted by Department of Urban and Regional Planning. In particular, this program is designed to organize information technology-based lecture activities by involving practitioners and expert academics from within and outside the country as one of the strategy in improving the quality of learning within the scope of the Department of Urban and Regional Planning. Dear participant, now we're entering the main agenda of today's event, which is lecture given by two amazing keynote speakers. The next agenda will be led by Mr. Dimas Wisnu Adrianto. Mr. Dimas is a lecturer at the Department of Urban and Regional Planning, Universitas Brawijaya. Currently, he is also a research and teaching assistant at the Department of Planning, School of Environment, Education and Development, the University of Manchester, United Kingdom. He graduated from the Department of Urban and Regional Planning, Universitas Brawijaya, before obtaining 2 master's degrees from Institut Teknologi Bandung and the University of Queensland, Australia. He's near to finish his PhD at the University of Manchester, where he has been researching peri-urbanization and the politics and governance of spatial planning. Dimas' research interest covers topics across peri-urbanization, rural-urban transformation, urban theories, and the politics of spatial planning. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, please welcome Mr. Dimas Wisnu Adrianto. Hello, Mr. Dimas.
Still muted. I didn't realize I was muted. So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
So, yeah, I would welcome ladies and gentlemen to these a series of webinars within the 3-in-1 program in our department. A special welcome to Pak Sumedi and a good morning to Joe Ravets, who's situated in Manchester. So before we start the sessions, I would like to quote a bit of what the MC have addressed about this 3-in-1 program. We are inviting some honorable speakers from academics from overseas and practitioners. So by its nature, this program is an outward looking. So I encourage you all to think in that frame while you listen to the guest lecture. So think about how to best apply the knowledge into the context of practice. And of course, because we are also inviting an internationally based speaker, so it's about looking how this issue connects with the global phenomenon and so on. So yes, 2 speakers have joined us at this afternoon. We will first have Professor Joe Ravets from the University of Manchester. He is the co-director of the Center of Urban Resilience and Energy at the University of Manchester. He has become the editorial board of some notable journals and also a coordinator of the Greater Manchester Policy Exchange. And also he has been advising in policies for numerous global institutions, including the UN Habitat, the EU Parliament, EU Commission, and so on. He will be delivering his lecture with the title Foresight and Futures for Spatial Development. But before we start, so according to the schedule I've received from the committee, so there will be 2 sessions, parallel sessions, and then the discussion will be placed after the second speaker. So to Professor Joe Ravetz, will it be okay for you to allocate the time after the second speaker for the discussions?
Sure, that's fine with me.
Okay, brilliant. And
I'm sorry, Professor First, Dimas.
yes, Pak. Hello, yeah. Yes, so yeah, if that's okay, so I will. There is also a link that Joe has shared that he would like to use while he's giving the guest lecture and in the discussion session. So it's an interactive website where you can address maybe your ideas and so on. So keep an eye on the chat box. Yeah. So without further delay, so we would like to welcome Professor Joe Ravetz to take his time on delivering his materials. Yes, Joe. Yes. So the time is yours.
Sorry, I just said something all muted, and here I am. Okay, I'm very grateful to be with you here today, and I'm very honored that you are thinking so positively on these ideas, which, as you can see, are making some contribution in different places around the world. So I would just say right now, I'm very sorry, the Mentimeter interactive thing, there was a technical problem, so not working just now. However, the whiteboard link is working. It's the same one which was shared 10 days ago. And I will just very quickly now, before the main presentation, give you a picture of this interactive workspace for anyone who was not here 10 days ago. So are we sharing this? Yes, okay. So yes, you can see what is going on roughly. This is a part of a larger workspace used for the peri-urban project called PeriScene. And you can see in the top right corner a section called Surabaya, and some very interesting comments are on this section. You can also see Melbourne to the south and Changsha to the west, and these are some of our other case studies around the world. And you can also see on the lower part, the slides, which I'm about to show in different 4 or 5 sections. And the point of putting them on the whiteboard is so that people can make comments on the slides. What a great idea. So if you have a comment or a question or something you don't like or something you do like, or maybe just a link to some interesting example, please put them on the whiteboard. It's very easy. I think everyone will know how to do this. You click on your mouse, yes, double click. There is a little box. You write in the box, and there it is. You can put pictures, links, other kinds of stuff. You'll also see these questions. I'm sorry, I could not get them onto the Mentimeter. There's some technical issue, but the questions are here, and I'll talk about these questions as we go through the presentation. And each of the 5 sections has a question. So what could be more fun than that? Oh wait, there's a problem here. Okay, I'll fix that when we get near to it. So that is the whiteboard. It's a workspace, it's an interactive space, it's a space for conversation. And to my mind, this is really important because I have listened to a lot of lectures in my time, and universities are full of lectures. You hear thousands of words, you see thousands of slides, but it's often too much one way. I think to cultivate the best minds of the future, we have to think two-way. We have to think interactive. Everybody has great ideas in their heads. So let's see them and hear them. And then we can exchange and all learn together. So that is the brief introduction. I now skip back to the slides. And as I say, these are also on the whiteboard, so you can see them as you not at the same time. You can check the ones that are of interest. So let me just share this. Are the slides showing now, Dimas? The slides are showing okay? Just to check.
Yes, Joe, the slide is okay. The slide is okay.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so the topic, foresight on futures for spatial development. Well, this is something I have worked on for a long time and learned a few things on the way. I don't know of anyone who has all of the answers to these big questions, but I will share you 5 different kinds of thinking in the next 40 minutes. We have an overview. We talk about methods and tools for foresight and futures in spatial development. And then we apply 3 types of tools. One is called change mapping, and another one is called vision or synergy mapping. What do we want and what is possible? And then the last one is called pathway mapping. What is to be done to make our visions into practical reality? So these are the questions on the right-hand side, which I will come to in each of these 5 sections. So an overview. And this is the first section. How do you feel about the future? And again, sorry, the Menti system is not working, but you are welcome to put your ideas on the whiteboard. The more, the better. Do you feel positive, negative? Will the future be very different? Will the future be more of the same? Who can say? Maybe we don't know. Could we ask the experts? Who are these experts? Actually, Asia Pacific, in my view, is the world center of futures thinking. Every country has great people, great projects. Some of them are in Indonesia. Maybe some of them are here today, I don't know. But we can say, yes, a lot of people are thinking about the future, but what is the result? Are we any wiser to say, oh, we know what is happening tomorrow or next week? Well, no, probably not. Maybe we are better prepared. So this is a thing which I would like to share with you. A few introductory remarks. And this is one vision of the future. And you have to guess, where do the poor people live and where do the rich people live? Well, that's probably not too difficult. And then we say, oh, here is one example from our city, Manchester. We were doing a futures project. And suddenly the government said, oh, no, you have to stop that. You're wasting your time. What did the future ever do for us? And you see this town hall here, it's full of losers. The private sector should make some profits, and that is what growth. So in other words, the vision of the future here was very different to the future that other people were talking about. Is it a future of shopping malls and airports or something different? Is it a future of private sector running the government or something different? So this is just one cartoon. This was quite controversial at the time. And then we say, oh, wait a minute, what are the population projections for Greater Manchester? Is it like this? Is it like that? Is it like that? And the point is, each year, our government does the population future for 15 years, and each year it's completely different. And these are experts in population change. So who's to say that they are right or wrong? And we don't know. But yeah, this is how planning is done in this country and most others. You know, you ask an expert and they will say, yes, the population should do this. Therefore, we need these number of houses, and therefore spatial plans get made. So maybe there's another way. Well, this is also what we see in our country, a lot of growth in Manchester, second city out of London, but also a lot of decline. These are good houses, but they're empty because nobody wants to live there. It's a bad area full of crime and bad things. And this is a big problem. And then we have a problem with basic services, as you can see. So this is just like a little snapshot from the UK. Things are not always great. Then we say, oh, okay, what happens if the bad stuff all combines? Well, this is a cartoon from the COVID, as you can see, and it's one of a series called the Corona Games. But this one is about to say, what if all the bad stuff multiplies up? This is a word used in the American defense institutions, the Pentagon and the CIA and so on. They talk about threat multipliers, very scary. And this is actually, yes, very scary. And the message is, we will add up all of these different things, displacement, political tension, climate chaos, whole cities and nations start to fall to pieces. Some are already falling in different parts of the world. It's not nice. Is there a positive story which we can also tell? To say, yes, we can do sustainable food and sustainable energy. We can do high-tech science. We can do new economics. We can even liberate the humans, the individuals. Some progress has been made, let's be clear, in the recent years. But at the same time, we have now a new realization. We have an unreality TV, as seen most clearly, I think, in the USA, in my view. But we can say, yes, the virus is not only out there, the virus is in the mind of the people. And this is maybe the biggest, deeper threat multiplier of all. Very scary. So having said that, the next question is, which futures and foresight methods do you use now or do you study now? And there is a long list, there's a menu, but you just tell me, what are you doing on the futures and foresight agenda on the whiteboard, if you can. So this is just to remember what we talked about at the end of the last session 10 days ago. And this is a process, let's say, because if we ask the experts, what is the future, what is coming up? Well, they have different views and they also have expertise, but yes, they are not expert in everything which is going on, and usually they are wrong. So then we say, okay, let's ask the people. What do they think? What do they want? What is their hopes? What is their fears? So we ask the people, and the people will say, oh, okay, it's all very complex, but yeah, let's have a meeting. Let's have a workshop and do some structured method involving thinking about the future and what is coming and what we want and so on. So this is a 4-part method, which I have developed over 20 years now, maybe more. And first we draw the system. What is the problem? How does the system work, which is our problem? Then we draw something about the future, scenario mapping, but also future trends and dynamics. We draw pictures. As you probably know by now, I'm quite keen on pictures. I draw a lot myself. And I was once an architect, so I have some pens and a drawing board and stuff. And then the most important part, we map the synergies. We say, what do we really want and how could we start to get it, and who would be part of that picture? And if that becomes clear, then we say, okay, what are we going to do? The strategy part. Now, we may go around this circle a number of times, but we may say also there's some practical questions. What time is lunch or coffee? But more bigger question, who is here? Why are they here? What do they want? How much does it cost to do all this? And then more important of all, what is the scope of our question? Are we just talking about some technical problem with a technical solution? Just get enough, concrete and build a wall or something? Or is it more about innovation, or is it more about transformation? Now, this is an interesting question, because most people say, yeah, well, we want to transform this place and make it better, but what we know how to do is get 1,000 tons of concrete, because we're builders or engineers or whatever. So often there is then a kind of discussion to be had to say, okay, we want to transform this community, this landscape, this city, but we just have 1 million tons of concrete. So who knows how to use it? So this discussion will go around and around. And then, well, we can get more structured. This is part of the way in which the methods have developed. And we see the flip chart. This is my favorite tool. And everything's very messy. Nothing fits. Everybody argues. There must be some way to manage these complex problems, but it's all mixed up. And if we draw a map, the map looks crazy. So we have developed this thing called synergistics, the science and art of synergies. And this is designed for crazy, mixed up, messy, complex situations. And as you can see, mapping is an important part of it. The more people you can get into the room or the process, the better. And then we say, okay, first let's draw who is around the table, who is involved. And then let's draw how do they connect, what do they do? Are they policymakers? Are they engineers? Are they farmers, teachers? Let's just draw a map of what they do. And then we say, okay, there is more. We have to think deeper and wider and further, because the problem which we are trying to solve is usually part of some bigger problem, deeper and wider and further. So then we say, okay, let's get more specific, get more analytic about these different types of problems. And this is where we can talk, and I think this was in the last presentation, so I'll just skip this bit, but basically we can talk about a clever city, which is like a machine, a smart city, which is like a competition. Usually the winners win and the winners take all and get very rich, the losers get very poor. Or we can talk about a wise city, which has some kind of collective intelligence so that we can all work together. And we can also apply the same idea for economies and technologies and government systems, etc. So then there is a cycle of thinking, which is what we saw in the previous big cartoon. And this works in a way like that. And there is also more questions to address, like where do we do this and who should be involved and where does the money come from? All these practical questions come up. So then we say, okay, can we draw this? What are these templates or patterns for drawing these very complex systems? So this is a set of templates which has developed over 15, 20 years, more or less. Actually, the one on the bottom, this was developed 30 years ago when I started my career in community architecture and planning. And we were trying to bring people around the table. So part of doing that was to say, okay, let's draw the people around the table. The landowners, the house builders, the residents, the service providers, let's all draw them and see if they can work together. And often we find, no, sorry, they don't work together. Everything is in a conflict. So then there are other levels to this, as you can see. And then we get to the change bit, the scenario bit, and say what causes the change, how does the change work, and what are the alternatives that may be in the future. And I'll talk about that in a moment. Then we get to the synergies bit and say, okay, what interconnections in these domains of economics and politics? What are the synergies in the value chains of what people do? Could they do a better job as teachers or as farmers or as taxi drivers or anything? And then who's involved in this? Can they work together better? What are the synergies? Finally, we get to the strategies and say, okay, what are we going to do? And I'll talk about that in a moment. So in this presentation, I'm going to skip the first set on the left because we saw much of that 10 days ago. In a moment, I will move to the scenarios or the change mapping. And after that, move to the synergies or the synergy mapping. And after that, move to the strategies and the action plan. Okay. So then, well, and just to illustrate, yes, the same template is then on the whiteboard. And we have one part of this bigger whiteboard in the link. And Surabaya has a simplified model of here, but it also has some other stuff at the lower part, and it has some more information, and it has maps also. So the whole point is, this is a very flexible method. You can do what you want, really. And also there is one example of the futures mapping for Surabaya so far. This is all work in progress. We can also talk about the domains and say, oh, wait a minute. Is this futures intelligence? Well, this comes from UNESCO, this phrase, the collective anticipatory intelligence. So it could be a very technical thing. We just ask the experts and they will run some spreadsheets or an economic model maybe. But we could also say, well, actually, different people have very different views on what this is about. What is the agenda here? If we ask the artists in the room, creative thinkers, they will say, yes, it's all about, heritage and identity and myth. If we ask the politicians in the governance system, they will say, yeah, we have to first get the discourse right. And imaginary, these are things used in the academic literature. And then we can do strategic planning, but, there is a zone of uncertainty. And so on. In other words, each type of thinking around the room has its own version of what is the future. What is the agenda for thinking and studying and discussing and so on and so on. So that's just a kind of map in the background. Then we say, oh, wait a minute. Let's do this thing called foresight. Foresight is basically futures methods applied systematically to present day action. Some futurists just stay in the future and say, well, it's like this or it's like that. I myself am more interested in foresight because it connects back to the present. But in my experience, there is a lot of not good foresight going on. And here you see the picture in the story of the blind people and the elephant. And is it a snake or a big tree? Or is it a rope? And so on and so on. In other words, the people do not see the bigger picture. They just see each part of the elephant. So then we can also put up a different kind of picture of an elephant and say, yes, now the elephant is in the room or in the mind, so as we say, part of the community. And why are we doing this foresight? Well, it's not just to solve a problem or not just to get rich quick. We're doing it because we believe in cultural things and social things and ecological things and scientific things. And the future here is about transformation. So this is, again, different ways to put the frame or the scope of the foresight and Futures process. So let's have a quick look at the change on what lies ahead on a dynamic urban planet. And the question here, which you can see on the whiteboard, what could be the biggest changes for Indonesia in 2050 or 2100? And many people say 2100, oh, that's really a long way away. How can we know anything about 2100? All we can say is, yes, some of you here will be, parents of children. If a child is born today, well, they have a good chance of living to 2100. So that's why we have to think. And this part uses these templates here. Now, to do this properly and systematically, I would have to run a course. I can invite you to our Manchester Foresight course, which runs once a year at the moment, and we can, share these methods in some detail. Today, in a small amount of time, I can only give you a quick look, a quick tour of what some of these things can do. So let's talk about the drivers of change. This came from a project for the European Commission. I won't talk about each of these in any detail, but just to put them up, these were identified by a whole bunch of stakeholders in Europe in our workshop as the 12 most important drivers of change, or mega trends, as they call it. So you get the idea. These are things which, some of them are positive, but causing problems. Some of them appear to be negative, but maybe also bring opportunities, like migration. Some of them, like climate change, appear to be very negative, but maybe there is a chance to turn that curve into a positive curve. Others seem to be positive, but actually they're very difficult. Sustainable food, energy, and water. And then others are, well, this is what we see in the cities. Certainly in our city, things are not always great. But also the game is changing. The economy, the structure of the economy is changing very fast, faster than we can really keep track. And then there's the digital cloud, surveillance economy, but there is also social and psychocultural development. People now do more yoga and meditation than they did. This might be a good thing. Let's see. So these are 12 mega trends. Then we can start to look back at some data, and here we see from the Atlas of the Human Planet, urbanizing faster, urbanizing slower, more urbanized, less urbanized, the different combinations. Indonesia on this map is more urbanized, but also urbanizing faster. So, well, you are the experts on Indonesia. And then we can start to get analytic and say, what is the ratio of urban to rural population? What is the trend and the track over 40 years? I won't talk about this in detail, but there's some citations coming up. And then in particular, we can talk about conversion of urban land and share of population, and divide the urban world into three really big types: the urbanized, the steadily urbanizing, and the rapidly urbanizing. And then you can attach these to development types, income types, and the list of statistics is very, very long. This comes from the OECD, and they also have a forward projection, which you see on the right, meaning the city population is set to grow, and rural areas are set to go just to be flat, and towns and semi-dense will be somewhere in between. Okay, but what are these projections based on? We have to ask some critical questions here. And there we get the income class and the world region class, and so on and so on. So that is all the data. Then we throw in this inconvenient truth called climate change. Say, oh, I wonder if this will change what happens in the cities. And as we know now, and in the talks coming up, we're trying to aim for 1 or 2 degrees at maximum, but the reality at the moment is heading towards 3 or 4 degrees. This is not good news. And then the result in London is expected to be like this. Sooner or later, central London will be not very habitable. And then the results out there in many parts of the world looks like that. The houses are in the wrong place with the wrong kind of protection and so on. So this could well change what happens in the cities. Then we track to the coastal mega cities, of which Jakarta is a good example. And well, we can talk about in detail another time, the detail of the threats to Jakarta for one example. In other words, the point here is to say, well, the projections of the urban demography people with their models and spreadsheets probably don't include for these different types of challenges. And as you can see in this cartoon, the challenges all interact, they all interconnect. Well, not all, but for, many of them. And who is to say which one is going to be the most important factor of driving change? So this has big meaning for the future's agenda, which is to say, well, we're not just talking about something you can put on a spreadsheet and press the button and there is the answer. It really is not like that. We have to create the future that we want, not only predict the future which is already given. So this is an important message. So then, an even more important message, in my view, is to say, well, you know what? Cities grow, but then they don't. Something happens, or maybe they're in the wrong place, and there is an economic crisis, or a political crisis, or just a pandemic, or a change of trading relations, and so on. So this is, in the left-hand picture here, is very much the story of Manchester. We grew and we grew as fast as we could. We built factories, and then we built more factories and more houses, and so on and so on. And then the thing got to a climax, and then, oh, the industry died. It went overseas. The people were not happy. They started to burn down the houses, and so on. I mean, that's a very simple version of a long story. Then sooner or later, the policymakers said, we have to regenerate, we have to reorganize. But the only way they can do that is to build enclaves with gentrification, high value apartments with high fences around. And if you are unskilled and poor, sorry, you're not invited, you cannot get into these nice places. So we are building another kind of divided city. So then we have to say, is there an alternative to this cycle of growth and change? And yes, maybe, but we have to think carefully about how this works. And maybe we need a new system of economics and finance, where the winner just, the profit is not just taken out, and a new system of government so that all the people can communicate. This drawing, by the way, is in a paper on the new administrative capital of Egypt, 30 kilometers outside of Cairo. And it might even be useful for the new capital in Kalimantan. Who knows? So I'll leave that there. Then also, we have to talk about sudden change, what we call wild cards, or the weak signals, which bring the wild cards up in front of us. And well, this is, the iconic wild card of the 20th century, remembered only 3 weeks ago on the anniversary. What was going on? And the point is here, everybody has a different view. It certainly happened. It was a big, big disaster. But what was the cause? What was the effect? And these things, are very, very big questions. So, well, we have an ongoing study of wild cards, so-called. Another one is this cartoon. I share that this is not really a scientific a lecture, but I have another series going on. It's called The Political Games. So when the Taliban took over Kabul, I was quite, affected. I did spend some time in Kabul many, many years ago. So not to say, this side is right or wrong in this lecture, but rather to say, yeah, the Americans, the Western was, oh my God, the Taliban just walked in. What was going on? They could not understand, why. What they thought, was, they were doing the right thing. But then it turned out, yes, it was corrupt. It was inefficient. It was wasteful, and so on. The system was waiting to fall down. And this is a very important message, I think, for urban planning. And if you went back to the growth picture, most urban planners, and I say this myself, we do growth. We know about growth. We can build houses, we can find land, we can build a new road. When it gets to the other part of the picture, a crisis or a regeneration, that's much more difficult, because actually you don't have money to build new houses or new roads. You have to somehow find a way to fix the old ones. It's not so much fun. Careers are more difficult to advance, if you're just fixing up old stuff. In my view, personally, it's actually much more important to fix up the old stuff. Anyone can build a new city, if you have enough concrete and steel and glass. Yes, in Cairo, they want to build the biggest tower in Africa. Okay, that sounds nice, but will it really improve the lives of the people? I don't know. Anyway, that's for another day. So that's then to say, okay, let's get a bit more technical and talk about how we do these change things. Well, the first thing is to say, what are the axes of uncertainty? Now, this one was very popular about a year ago. And we could say, okay, what if the pandemic is okay, we have solved it, we have the vaccines and everything. What if the pandemic is not? It goes on, new variants, and the vaccines don't work, and so on. Or if people are not getting the vaccines. And also then up and down, we say, what if society is really going to change a lot? Or what if not much? There is inertia. So we can start to put different views of the future into different corners of this picture. And well, the first one is business as usual. The next one is very, very different. Would I want to live in this world? No, not really, but if you have to, then yes, you can. You notice even the dog is inside a, high safety thing. But we can also talk about other ways to organize communities. If we solve the pandemic, can we make a social transition so that people are more happy and helpful and they're more equal and so on? But also we have to talk about the other alternative. If society stays the same, but the pandemic goes on, and in many parts of the world, we now have this kind of situation. So the point is, okay, are all of these different possibilities equally likely, or is one more likely, or can we do this or choose to do that? I show this to some of my friends and they say, oh yes, I like that one, the number 3 one. Let's do that. And I say, yeah, but how do we, well, we cannot assume, we might be forced to do something different. So these things will run and run around. Anyway, then we can say, what about an urban scenario framework? And this came from our big peri-urban project in Europe. And it was based on an IPCC framework. And okay, what if we have a global community or a global enterprise world, all very private sector? What if we have local communities who look after themselves? Or what if we have local enterprise which is local, but people just try to make their profit and get out, and the result is probably that the floods, the climate change effects will be worse. So these again are very, very simple, as you see, stories. Then we can start to tell in more detail each one. And this is one example from the global enterprise, which again, then you can bring into the technical world and start to build models and spreadsheets and so on and so on. So moving quickly, I think I'm pretty much.
Excuse me, Joe. Excuse me, everyone. I encourage you all to mute your microphone, please. Okay. Problem solved.
Dinos, how much time should I take?
So your schedule is up to 1/4 past. So you still have about 15 to 14, no, 20 minutes. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Fantastic. Okay. That's a luxury. I hope it's some use to you. Anyway, so question 3, what are your visions for the future of Indonesia? If you have any ideas, comments on that question, I would be very interested to know. You'll notice on the whiteboard, the Surabaya corner has already, quite a number of visions and great ideas and so on. So it would be nice also to get your views on that. And you'll notice the templates, the little drawings in the middle here, these now have connections on them between the different actors and stakeholders and between the different parts of the factor chain and between the different domains of economics and politics and culture and so on. So this is the idea of the synergies. And if we can draw this on a flip chart or a whiteboard or even a bus ticket, great, we're probably one small step nearer to making it happen. So, and these are the kinds of questions that we would ask for each of these synergy drawings. In a project, in a Foresight or Futures project, we would not just take this and do exactly that. We would say, okay, well, we have some information here, we have some methods there, let's put it all together. In other words, this method is very flexible. And also, I should say, this method is not my creation. It is one way to structure the whole field of futures and foresight, which is very big. There's thousands of people all around the world. Many of them have their own method. Well, that's okay. But I was interested myself to look for what is underneath all these methods. What, as the common fundamental logic to say, why does this one work here and not there and so on. So what you see here is the way in which this has come out after many years of development. And well, just to say, yes, these things have been tested in different places. Cities of Tomorrow was a great project done for the European Union. You can see from the picture, the sun is shining, everybody looks happy, the trees have got flowers, that's nice. And then you look at the real world and say, no, sorry, the real world is different. What if we talk about the real world? We have cities with no money. We have whole communities with no jobs. We have houses which are falling to pieces and there is no money to fix them. If we have a successful city, is it a branch plant of some global corporate? Meaning, it's great while the factories are running, but then the global corporates might say, sorry, we'll move our business to Bangladesh now. So bye-bye, and everybody is out of a job. This happens everywhere. So, we could talk about that in more detail. But in Europe, for one, we talk about territorial cohesion. Nice word. What does it mean? Well, there are many conferences and workshops and so on that thing. And here's the summary of what it means. Economic and social cohesion, harmonious and balanced development, overcoming differences in density and distance, and so on and so on. In other words, these are very high-level words. My only worry is they mean almost nothing. in compared to the real world problems. So this is again something I've been working on for many years to say, yeah, can we bring the good ideas into more of a real world context? We can go to other places such as the World Bank. This is the Urbanization Review team, and it's very simple. You know, the World Bank, you know, plan, you connect, you find the money. Okay, everything is solved, maybe, but maybe not. Then there are visions of future cities. I think we saw this last time. The one on the left is what started my own journey into this whole business, and a book came out which was based on that drawing from Howard of 1901 of the Garden City of Tomorrow. And we're still trying to think through what this means and how to do it. Well, then we have to say, okay, let's talk about future visions for cities. Whose future vision? What kind of people are part of this vision? And this is a really important question. And usually, my colleagues in policy making places, they just kind of jump over this. They say, oh, well, yeah, we all know what we want, you know, economic growth, nice place, you know, maybe, you know, sustainability, and so on and so on. And then I say, oh, yeah, that's fine. But what if people have different views on what these things mean? Anyway, so I began to explore this and chart different types of worldview or of society discourse. It's not so different from the scenario structure which we saw before, but now this is not in the future, this is about now. But if you ask people, who are you and what do you want? Well, it's partly about the future. And well, in each of these cases, you can see, we ask, what do these people put their trust in? Is it global free markets, or is it in security or something? What do they distrust? What is outside of their mental frame? So the techno-corporate community, well, they would probably distrust the poor people, the outsiders. This is not good for the poor, but that's how it is. We might argue about this. So you can go around the circle and say, what do you distrust? What kind of culture? And what kind of things come from these views? And this is then the secret to, in my view, working towards the synergy which you need for real forward planning. Because if you simply assume, oh yes, everybody in Indonesia is techno-corporate and we like global free markets and we don't like poor people too much, but you know, that's just tough, and so on. Well, this is probably not going to be great, and actually not everybody will agree. So if you want to do the kind of urban planning where everybody agrees, well, you have to start to explore what people really think and feel. This is a new thing which is, you know, coming out. Then you can go back to the plan. So, okay, what kind of city are we building? Is it an automobile city with large car parks, and you know, you have rich places on the outside, but also poor places, and so on. But you know, just to do your life, you have to get in a car and sit in traffic jams for hours per day. Or is it a different kind of spatial plan? Is it more wise, so to say? And well, these ideas have been around for a long time. Some few places around the world have managed to build these, not many. Many others have them in the plan, but somehow the plan doesn't work very well. And again, I'm very keen to discover why and what can be done. So then we say, okay, how is this neighborhood, this local place? And here you see, yes, a place which is not friendly to people. You cannot cross the road. It's dangerous for children to walk around. Everyone is a stranger. If you fall over, nobody will help, and so on. So then we say, what's the alternative? And we say, okay, maybe there is an alternative where children and young people are safe. Everybody is welcome. If you fall over on the street, somebody will help, and so on. Now, I put that up to say, because having just said the previous thing, this one, so, oh, does that mean that everybody has a different view and they will always argue and never agree? Yes and no. So we have to look for the center ground. What can these people agree? If society is made up of different types of people, what will it take for them all to agree? So then we can go to the neighborhood, local thing, and say, yeah, I think most people will agree on this if they can get what they want. We're not trying to, take all the cars away. We're just trying to say, yeah, let's let the cars live in balance with the humans, and so on. So then we can say, okay, how do we do this? The planning process. How do we build in these visions into the planning process? And again, the best way I've found is to bring all of the stakeholders into the room, or at least into our map. Sometimes it can be very difficult to bring them all into the room because, you have millionaires, you have beggars, you have taxi drivers, and so on. In our Indian workshops, we started to bring in rivers and elephants and monkeys also to demonstrate that, yes, we are trying to create the harmony with nature. But on one side here, you see, yeah, things are very bad. Nobody agrees. The rich people just put the money in and take it out as fast as they can. Is there an alternative? So we can then start to look for the synergies around the table, which then enable the alternatives to happen. And what you see then is a very different kind of planning process where the people are in the room. Old people, young people, people in wheelchairs, and so on. The experts and the policymakers are all also in the room. In the model which I was working in a long time ago, it's called Planning for Real. And the residents, it's their meeting, they run it, they decide. The planners are in the room, but they are not allowed to speak until there is a question to the planners. And yeah, it turns upside down a lot of the relations of experts and people, but the results are usually very good. So then, what is to be done in policy and planning, the final bit? And again, we can get into some detail. You'll have to sign up for our course for the whole detail. So this is, again, just a sketch, a very quick tour in the last 5 minutes now. And the question is, what can planning on design and engineering do to be more future wise? And again, your ideas and comments on the whiteboard, they will be very welcome. So just a few words. Well, firstly, these are some of the sources which I use: UN Habitat, OECD, McKinsey, JRC, Science Atlas of the Human Planet, UN Habitat, Urban-Rural Linkages, our big thing at the moment, World Economic Forum, and so on and so on. So the point is, there is no shortage of official advice. There's actually too much. But we also have to say, okay, so what does this mean for how we can do policy and planning? And can we start with the pathways which build up through the synergies which we have now explored with the people in that place, not just coming from some expert outside or from some consultant, from USA, but these are generated with the people, by the people, for the people. And so this is, again, a graphic which tries to show how these different pathways of action all interconnect in this one place. This is a real place, by the way. Then we say, okay, so we have some idea of the pathways. Can we turn this into a roadmap? Now, roadmap is not the same as a plan, but is the next step towards a plan. Now, these examples come from technology development, RTD, so-called. So it's not a plan for over time, but it's a plan of a complex system. I won't talk about the detail, but you can see, okay, so we have to talk about the market, the product, the technology, the R&D, and how much does it cost, and where do the skills come from, and so on. Then we can apply it to a real example. This is for electric cars, the roadmap for electric cars, and then get into more detail. And this is more of an engineering example for the production of high quality metal components. And again, we say, okay, this looks really complex, but this is it. This is the real thing. And I mention this because a lot of urban planners, they could, I think, benefit from looking at roadmap methods. And yes, an urban plan is not the same as a technology plan, but it has, certain things that are the same. So then we get to the plan, and now we're talking about time, and we can talk about scenario planning, meaning, okay, what if we have a high population in this area? What if we have a low population in this area? How do we do a plan? So, and the plan is, short term, as you can see, quite detailed, but then we have a longer plan, a framing master plan. I think this already exists in Indonesia.
Joe, excuse me, there are 3 more minutes.
Okay, that's fine. And all I can say is the more that we can bring scenario thinking into that type of planning process, then the better we can make our plans for the short term. So this is where the scenario planning starts to come back into the present day, or like a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan. So again, we could say more about this. I'll skip this bit now, but we can talk also about innovation. This comes from the innovation literature, and we can talk about an innovation system, meaning universities, banks, technology people, government, and entrepreneurs when it does not work. And then talk about using the foresight and futures approach to help the synergies that then make the innovation system work. Now, again, this is closely connected to urban planning, but in another area. And again, a technique, methods and tools, which I think urban planning can also learn from. So that's really about it. This is a kind of summary of the conclusions. I'll leave these on the whiteboard, and future-wise proofing, so-called, and synergistic mapping is a way to go. So with that, I'll just say a big thank you. There's more in the book, and I look forward to your comments and questions, whiteboard and in discussion. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Joe Robert. So yeah, it's a very insightful presentation, I think. If there are questions, just keep it for later after we have the second guest lecture session. But please allow me to conclude. I'll try to conclude in a couple of sentences. So it's not easy, but what I can summarize from Joe Robert's guest lecture is that first, the point is we are living in a world where change happens rapidly, and those changes are unprecedented. But the problem is the way we predict about the future is quite conventional. So we do only predictions of let's say, population projections and just very, very simple and traditional predictions about the future. So the message here is that we also need to change in the way we see the future. So that's why this Foresight 3.0 encourages to look at challenges and wildcards, alternative futures, and so on. So yeah, so that's maybe the very short and very maybe just an underlining what was the message from this lecture. So now just before we continue, I encourage everyone to mute their microphones, just check and recheck if they are, yes. So yeah, our second speaker is Dr. Andes Sumedi Andono Mulyo, MA, PhD. He is currently the Director of Spatial Planning and Disaster Mitigation in the Bappenas, or the National Development Agency, Development Planning Agency. He obtained his PhD at the University of Tokyo, and afterwards he did some extensive postdoctoral trainings and leadership trainings, including the one in the Harvard Kennedy School, in which he just recently completed in 2017. So Pak Sumedi will deliver his lecture with the title of Rural Urban Transformation, Employing Risk, Reduction, Adaptation, and Mitigation. So I believe this would be a very useful and very interesting material. So Pak Sumedi, Pak Direktur, monggo di waktu dan tempat saya persilakan.
So thank you Mas Dimas, Bapak Ibu, selamat siang, good afternoon everybody. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan. Even though I have prepared for the presentation my PowerPoint in English, but I will give my presentation in Bahasa Indonesia. And so thank you very much for inviting me for Brawijaya University, and also thank you Professor Joe Raffets. It's very comprehensive presentation covering all aspects, and also very excellent, using many illustration and information. Bapak Ibu, saya akan menyampaikan dalam bahasa Indonesia. Next. Atau saya share saja? Terima kasih terus. Ya, saya mulai dari theoretical background. Yang pertama, overview rural, peri-urban, urban linkages. Ada yang kita lihat bahwa perkembangan di Indonesia itu bagaimana kita melihat kota Surabaya, kemudian di kota sekeliling di beberapa daerah, dan juga daerah pedesaan. Nah, di sini saya menawarkan suatu kemajuan keterkaitan antara urban dengan peri-urban dan juga rural. Tapi ada beberapa risiko yang harus kita antisipasi. Yang pertama adalah risiko kesenjangan, terutama menyangkut akses terhadap pekerjaan dan juga kesempatan pelayanan pendidikan, kesehatan, dan juga dari segi perumahan. Ini sangat mendasar yang nanti pasti akan membutuhkan solusi bagi kita. Yang risiko berikutnya adalah menyangkut kalau itu di urban area, itu masalah high cost, high living cost, termasuk untuk food, housing, health, education facility. Tapi juga menyangkut kerentanan terhadap pandemi atau bencana. Di beberapa kota, di Bandung, di Semarang, itu sangat tinggi kerentanan terhadap bencana banjir. Kemudian di desa sendiri, itu risiko yang dihadapi, itu menyangkut eksploitasi terhadap lahan, kemudian sumber daya air untuk memenuhi kebutuhan kota, dan juga risiko degradasi lingkungan. Nah, ini juga akan memberikan suatu kerentanan bagi masyarakat desa, terutama menyangkut bahaya banjir yang nanti akan dihadapi oleh masyarakat. Jadi kita bisa melihat bagaimana keterkaitan antara daerah pusat kota dengan kawasan perkotaan, kemudian kawasan perkotaan dengan periurban, kemudian juga bagaimana keterkaitan periurban dengan perdesaan, dan juga desa dengan kawasan perdesaan dengan kawasan perkotaan. Nah, dalam posisi ini tadi juga disampaikan oleh Profesor Joe Harvest, itu menarik bagaimana pemahaman terhadap social capital, kemudian sikap adaptif terhadap perubahan, dan juga antisipasi terhadap risiko yang harus dihadapi. Berikutnya. Nah, dalam rangka itu, maka kita bisa melihat bagaimana rural urban transformation, misalnya di Jakarta, ini tahun 72 hanya terpusat di beberapa pusat kota, kemudian tahun 983 itu semakin bertambah, dan 2012 ini semakin besar jangkauan perluasan kawasan perkotaan. Nah, di sini ada beberapa faktor pendorong untuk dari pusat kota ke desa, itu menyangkut dorongan terhadap pemenuhan kebutuhan lahan, pasokan pangan murah, dan juga dari segi pasokan air bersih. Nah, ini akan menjadi tantangan terutama untuk kebijakan di dalam pembangunan kawasan perkotaan, termasuk kawasan suburban, itu menyangkut penyediaan fasilitas dasar, terutama perumahan, listrik, dan air bersih. Kemudian juga perkembangan di kota Jakarta, itu kita lihat semakin melebar sampai kepada daerah Bekasi, Bogor, dan juga Depok. Berikutnya. Nah, ini bagaimana kita melihat perkembangan Jakarta, Bandung, Medan, dan Surabaya, dan juga Semarang dalam kerangka aglomerasi, sehingga nanti akan aglomerasi menyebabkan proses transformasi kehidupan di kawasan perkotaan maupun kawasan perdesaan. Intinya adalah bahwa memang kita harus siap menghadapi perubahan itu dengan langkah-langkah yang kita pikirkan, dengan skenario yang kita siapkan bersama-sama. Berikutnya. Nah, dalam kerangka itu kita bisa melihat rural urban transformation itu sebagai bagian di dalam mengembangkan basis keunggulan. Ada 3 keunggulan. Yang pertama adalah comparative advantage atau keunggulan komparatif, itu berbasis kepada sumber daya. Kemudian competitive advantage, bagaimana pengelolaan pengetahuan atau knowledge atau inovasi. Dan yang ketiga adalah collaborative advantage. Tadi berulang kali Profesor Joe menyampaikan pentingnya sinergi atau kolaborasi. Nah, inovasi, knowledge, dan kolaborasi itu akan menjadi kunci bagaimana kita bisa membangun suatu kawasan yang berkelanjutan, yang aman, lebih aman, more safer, dan berkelanjutan. Nah, di sini kolaborasi berdasarkan pendekatan pentahelix, bagaimana partnership antara pemerintah daerah, masyarakat, perguruan tinggi, pelaku usaha, dan media. Itu sebagai satu jalan bagaimana kita bisa membangun kawasan perdesaan dan perkotaan sebagai satu kesatuan yang berkelanjutan. Nah, di sini ada 5 aspek yang harus kita perhatikan atau 5 modal. Yang pertama adalah modal sumber daya dan lingkungan atau natural resources and environmental capital accumulation. Kemudian akumulasi sosial capital. Yang ketiga adalah akumulasi modal pengetahuan atau knowledge capital accumulation. Yang keempat physical capital accumulation, dan yang kelima adalah financial capital accumulation. Seringkali kita hanya menghitung soal nomor 4 dan 5. Jadi we are too much focusing on physical capital accumulation and also financial capital accumulation. But the other natural resources and also social capital accumulation and knowledge capital accumulation is also very important to support transformation at rural and urban. Next, berikutnya. Nah, kita melihat bagaimana pola hubungan antar social relation di kota maupun di desa. Tadi juga sudah disinggung, ini hanya mempertegas kehidupan di desa itu lebih banyak pendekatannya berbasis kepada komunitas atau community. Kemudian pendekatan di kota itu lebih banyak kepada pendekatan individual. Nah, ini saya pelajari dari Irma Adelman, bagaimana social stratification itu terjadi. Maka di desa itu pola hubungan mengandalkan kepada hubungan sosial, didasarkan kepada kekeluargaan, kekerabatan. Motifnya adalah social solidarity atau solidaritas sosial. Insentifnya itu adalah kebersamaan. Nah, lokasinya di desa. Kemudian setelah hubungan sosial meningkat, maka menjadi social obligation, kewajiban sosial. Ada pendekatan motifnya adalah bagaimana keamanan secara sosial, maka insentifnya adalah social reward and sanction. Biasanya kalau ada gotong royong dan sebagainya, kalau dulu kalau kita tidak ikut gotong royong di desa, biasanya ada sanksi sosial berupa pengucilan dan sebagainya. Nah, ini biasanya terjadi di daerah pedesaan dan periurban atau di daerah kawasan pinggiran kota. Kemudian dengan berjalannya waktu, maka pola hubungan meningkat menjadi economic relation, hubungan ekonomi. Itu selain masih mengandalkan kepada pendekatan kekeluargaan, tapi sangat ditentukan oleh individual participation. Motifnya lebih banyak kepada motif ekonomi keamanan ekonomi. Nah, insentifnya adalah iuran atau financial contribution. Di sini menyangkut gotong royong itu mulai digantikan menjadi iuran. Nah, ini terjadi di kawasan pinggiran kota. Kemudian ketika masuk di economic obligation, kewajiban ekonomi, maka gotong royong dirubah menjadi iuran. Jadi tidak ada gotong royong sekarang ini di kawasan perkotaan, mungkin masih ada tertentu, lebih banyak kepada iuran untuk membayar sampah, kemudian satpam dan sebagainya. Jadi ini adalah suatu transformasi sosial yang terjadi di desa maupun di kota, mulai bergeser dari hubungan sosial menjadi kewajiban sosial, kemudian berubah menjadi hubungan ekonomi dan kewajiban ekonomi. Berikutnya. Nah, dalam kerangka itu kita melihat bagaimana pengaruh culture and development. Ini akan menjadi penting ketika melihat kondisi Indonesia dengan budaya yang beragam, maka soal culture dan juga mental model itu akan menjadi penting. Ini saya amati ketika saya belajar di Jepang, membandingkan kinerja pembangunan dari negara-negara di Asia Tenggara, Malaysia, Indonesia, Filipina, Thailand, dengan negara-negara di Asia Timur, Jepang, Korea, Tiongkok, Taiwan, kemudian dengan negara-negara di Asia Selatan, seperti Bangladesh, Pakistan, dan sebagainya, India, kemudian negara-negara di Afrika, maka di sini akan penting bagaimana soal culture and development itu saling berkaitan. Nah, culture itu menyangkut values atau nilai-nilai yang diyakini, kemudian attitude, dan juga belief atau suatu kepercayaan. Nah, di sini akan berpengaruh terhadap perilaku dari komunitas dan perilaku individu. Nah, di titik itu maka akan ada mutual trust and tolerance atau saling percaya dan toleransi. Ini akan menjadi fondasi bagi kinerja pembangunan. Karena dengan mutual trust and tolerance itu akan melihat bagaimana bentuk kerjasama antar warga dan juga persaingan atau kompetisi antar warga. Sehingga nanti kalau Bapak, Ibu, dan rekan-rekan perhatikan, ini akan berpengaruh terhadap sistem sosial dan politik dan ekonomi di suatu daerah. Nanti Bapak Ibu bisa membandingkan bagaimana sistem ini berlaku di berbagai daerah, maka kinerja pembangunan pun akan berbeda. Jadi ini akan menentukan ke arah mana pembangunan daerah, terutama untuk kawasan pedesaan maupun perkotaan. Nah, kuncinya adalah bagaimana meningkatkan kapasitas dan kapabilitas sumber daya manusia. So we have to focus on human capacity and capability. There are several factors. The first one is social justice and non-discrimination. Jadi ini akan menjadi penting bagaimana keadilan sosial dan tanpa diskriminasi itu akan menjadi kunci kemajuan suatu daerah atau kota. Yang kedua adalah pelayanan pendidikan yang berkualitas, pelayanan kesehatan, kemudian juga soal pengetahuan, research and development, inovasi, profesionalisme, kemudian merit system, dan kondisi stabilitas. Nah, ini akan menjadi menarik, Bapak Ibu bisa membandingkan bagaimana kondisi daerah itu berbeda, tergantung kepada adopsi terhadap kultur dan budaya perubahan. Berikutnya, next. Nah, yang kita lihat ada tadi menyinggung ada 5 modal ya, ada dimensi sustainable livelihood. Yang pertama adalah human capital, kemudian natural resources and environmental capital, kemudian financial capital, physical capital, and social capital. Nah, kondisi yang kita hadapi mestinya kelima dimensi tadi ikut membesar sejalan dengan proses pembangunan. Jadi pembangunan itu adalah proses akumulasi kapital. Nah, yang kita lihat dan kita teliti, kapital mana yang paling besar berpengaruh. Tadi Profesor Johar Raffets menyinggung tidak hanya bangunan gedung yang meningkat, physical capital dan juga ekonomi, tapi yang menjadi kunci itu juga bagaimana pengelolaan sumber daya alam, modal sosial dan modal manusia dan pengetahuan itu akan menjadi penting. Jadi ini akan menarik kalau Bapak Ibu teliti dengan 5 parameter ini, modal sosial, modal human, manusia, kemudian sumber daya, finansial dan infrastruktur, lalu dilakukan kajian terhadap suatu daerah, mana yang paling dominan. Nah, ini berikutnya. Dalam transformasi dengan pendekatan sustainable livelihood, maka kita juga harus melihat kerentanan suatu daerah. Itu baik terhadap tren atau perubahan ekonomis, sosial, kemudian shock itu terjadi ketika ada krisis ekonomi atau krisis pandemi dan sebagainya, kemudian ada perubahan iklim, ada terjadinya risiko, kemudian juga mungkin ada masalah politik. Kalau Bapak Ibu masalah politik itu di Papua masih belum tuntas, kemudian juga social unrest, ini akan menentukan bagaimana aset atau kapital, 5 aset tadi itu saling berpengaruh, ditentukan oleh institution atau kelembagaan. Kelembagaan itu menyangkut regulasi dan organisasi, baik di tingkat pusat, provinsi, kabupaten, kecamatan, distrik, desa maupun komunitas. Nah, itu akan juga ditentukan oleh kebijakan dan strategi. Nah, strateginya ini baik berupa adopsi terhadap pendekatan berbasis risiko, kemudian juga adaptasi terhadap risiko banjir, risiko perubahan iklim, kemudian mitigasi terhadap perubahan-perubahan itu, dan upaya untuk mengurangi risiko melalui investasi. Nah, ini semua akan berujung kepada bagaimana perbaikan ketahanan pangan, peningkatan pendapatan, perluasan kesempatan kerja, pengurangan kemiskinan, pengurangan kerentanan, dan juga pembangunan yang lebih berkelanjutan. Nah, dengan pendekatan sustainable livelihood ini, maka transformasi rural urban akan menjadi suatu perubahan yang bersifat kontinu, berkelanjutan. Berikutnya. Nah, satu hal yang tadi disampaikan Profesor Jo secara tidak langsung soal perubahan dari ekonomi linier yang mengandalkan kepada eksploitasi sumber daya alam menjadi circular economy. Circular economy itu dilakukan dengan melakukan reduce, recycle, reuse, and remake atau 4R terhadap proses pelayanan publik ataupun pengembangan ekonomi di pedesaan maupun di perkotaan. Dengan adopsi circular economy ini, maka pengurangan limbah itu bisa dilakukan dan pemanfaatan bahan baku menjadi lebih efisien dan efektif. Berikutnya. Nah, dalam kerangka itu, maka yang perlu kita lihat transformasi antara rural urban atau keterkaitan kota desa itu bagaimana memperkuat rantai nilai. Rantai nilai itu mulai dari input, produksi, processing, pengolahan, distribution atau distribusi, transportasi, logistik sampai kepada pasar. Nah, kalau kita lacak perubahan itu, maka biasanya basis produksi ada di desa. Basis proses bisa di kawasan pinggiran kota, tapi pasarnya itu ada di kawasan perkotaan. Di sini kita melihat bagaimana nanti ini akan menjadi topik skripsi, tesis maupun disertasi, bagaimana melihat rural urban transformation sebagai bagian dari penguatan rantai nilai. Kalau ini bisa dilakukan, seperti yang disampaikan Profesor Jo tadi, maka ini ada suatu peluang untuk mendorong transformasi itu berjalan dengan berkelanjutan. Nah, di sini menyangkut tadi akumulasi nilai tambah, income, surplus, dan saving, itu akan terbagi tidak hanya kepada middleman atau pedagang, tapi juga kepada petani dan nelayan yang betul-betul bekerja keras. Nah, tugas ini akan menjadi penting bagi Bappenas sebagai badan perencanaan maupun Bapeda sebagai badan perencanaan pembangunan daerah untuk melakukan mapping. Jadi tadi sudah dijelaskan juga mapping rantai nilai itu. Misalnya di Malang itu kalau di mapping dari mana bahan bakunya, siapa yang terlibat di situ, bagaimana distribusinya, bagaimana pengolahannya, bagaimana logistiknya. Nah, ini akan menarik juga kalau kita lihat behavior atau perilaku dari masyarakat, pelaku usaha, dan juga pemerintah daerah. Next. Nah, sebelum bergeser sebelumnya, ada upaya dalam rantai nilai tadi, maka ada transformasi digital yang memberikan kesempatan bagi transformasi secara lebih cepat. Artinya antara petani dengan pasar itu bisa menjadi lebih dekat. Karena tidak harus melalui middleman, petani punya website, punya akses terhadap internet, maka bisa menjual langsung kepada pasar atau konsumen. Nah, di sini menegaskan bagaimana strengthening komparatif, kompetitif, dan kolaboratif itu dengan beberapa langkah yang menggunakan pendekatan pentahelix antara pelaku usaha, perguruan tinggi, pemerintah daerah, komunitas atau masyarakat, dan juga media. Karena media sangat penting untuk promosi dan juga menggait para konsumen. Berikutnya. Berikutnya. Nah, bagian dari berikutnya adalah bagaimana kita melihat kondisi desa dan kota di Indonesia. Berikutnya. Nah, ini kalau kita lihat, ini peta desa tertinggal, Bapak Ibu dan rekan-rekan. Yang merah itu kita lihat di Papua, di Maluku, Nusa Tenggara, kemudian Kalimantan, itu sebagian besar merah, artinya masalah ketertinggalan. Kemudian juga di Sumatera bagian selatan barat, di Lampung, itu juga banyak yang merah. Kemudian Aceh, itu banyak merah. Nah, dengan kondisi kemiskinan dan ketertinggalan, maka tidak heran kalau kondisi sosial, ketertiban, keamanan di Papua masih terus ada gangguan. Dulu ada konflik sosial di Kalimantan Tengah karena memang soal kemiskinan dan ketertinggalan. Kemudian juga di Sulawesi, di tengah itu ada huruf K itu Poso. Poso kenapa masih ada beberapa gangguan keamanan? Itu soal kemiskinan dan ketertinggalan. Demikian pula Aceh, itu masih banyak yang desa tertinggal, maka ini akan menjadi tantangan untuk bagaimana supaya desa-desa itu melakukan transformasi sehingga nanti kehidupan menjadi lebih baik, lebih maju dan sejahtera. Berikutnya, kalau kita bandingkan pergeseran dari distribusi desa menurut ketertinggalan atau distribusi berdasarkan indeks desa, maka di sini dari sisi pelayanan dasar itu membaik, kemudian infrastruktur juga membaik, kemudian tata kelola pemerintahan desa juga membaik, tapi soal lingkungan ini masih relatif rendah. Artinya betul sekali yang disampaikan oleh Profesor Jo tadi, bagaimana soal lingkungan itu harus menjadi perhatian supaya nanti tidak menciptakan risiko besar bagi bencana di desa maupun di kota. Berikutnya. Nah, ini kalau kita bandingkan ada gap antara rural urban untuk pelayanan dasar, misalnya untuk akses terhadap pendidikan tinggi, menengah, akses terhadap bidan, kemudian tingkat elektrifikasi, kemudian juga akses terhadap drinking water, kepada koneksi internet, maka kita melihat bahwa di desa itu masih harus menghadapi gap dalam basic services. Berikutnya. Kemudian juga dari sisi akses terhadap sanitasi dan drinking water. Terus berikutnya. Kalau kita lihat dengan peta risiko bencana, maka hampir semua daerah itu termasuk dengan tingkat kerawanan tinggi dan menengah. Jadi hampir semua kawasan itu memiliki risiko bencana, sehingga tadi disampaikan Profesor Jo, kita harus juga siap terhadap risiko-risiko yang terjadi di desa maupun di kota, terutama untuk kawasan-kawasan perkotaan yang lebih rentan terhadap bahaya banjir dan sebagainya. Berikutnya. Nah, ini contoh bagaimana disaster risk assessment di Jawa Barat itu melihat fakta yang terjadi, banjir di Garut, kemudian juga di Tasikmalaya, itu berangkat dari soal lack of knowledge atau keterbatasan pengetahuan tentang risiko bencana. Kemudian juga ada illegal logging dan sebagainya, dan juga soal ketaatan di dalam pelaksanaan tata ruang di daerah. Nah, ini menjadi pembelajaran bahwa upaya menata ruang dengan pendekatan pemberdayaan masyarakat dan juga dari penguatan modal sosial melalui bagaimana peran dari pemerintah desa, tokoh agama, tokoh masyarakat, tokoh perempuan di dalam melakukan sosialisasi terhadap risiko bencana ini. Berikutnya. Temuan yang mirip terjadi di Malang. Kami kebetulan sempat ke Malang di desa di kecamatan Dampit kalau nggak salah. Itu melihat bagaimana dampak bencana itu meningkatkan risiko bagi masyarakat desa dan juga kawasan pinggiran di perkotaan. Intinya adalah bagaimana pemahaman terhadap risiko menjadi penting dan juga kesiapsiagaan masyarakat, preparedness of the local community. Berikutnya, berangkat dari situ, maka keywords di dalam menghadapi risiko perubahan baik di dalam menghadapi bencana, pandemi, banjir, maupun bencana alam lainnya, maka ada 3 keywords. Yang pertama adalah social capital, gotong royong dan sebagainya menjadi penting. Yang kedua adalah peran perempuan di dalam menggerakkan kegiatan. Kemudian pasar. Pasar ini menjadi penting karena akan menjadi titik temu bagaimana proses pemulihan bisa dilakukan secara cepat. Artinya di dalam mendorong transformasi desa kota, bagaimana modal sosial, peran perempuan dan pasar itu sebagai satu kesatuan yang tidak terpisahkan. Ini penanganan bencana di Jogja. Berikutnya. Kemudian contoh di Lampung, tsunami dan juga gempa bumi di Lampung, Selat Sunda. Berikutnya. Kemudian di Lombok itu juga mirip. Berikutnya. Di Palu, demikian pula bagaimana peran modal sosial, kaum perempuan dan juga pasar itu menjadi kunci untuk bagaimana pemulihan ekonomi dan penguatan ketahanan masyarakat dalam menghadapi risiko bencana apapun. Berikutnya. Ini best practices untuk land reform, bagaimana pemerintah melalui Kementerian ATR itu melakukan land reform untuk membantu supaya distribusi kepemilikan lahan itu tidak timpang dan juga masyarakat bisa akses terhadap lahan sehingga nanti ada kepastian usaha dan juga ada perubahan dalam masalah aset yang dimiliki oleh masyarakat. Tidak hanya aset dari sisi tenaga kerja, tapi juga aset lahan, aset finansial, dan juga aset knowledge. Berikutnya. Nah, ini contoh bagaimana mengembangkan rural urban linkages untuk suatu kawasan di Kapuas Hulu ya, Kabupaten Kapuas Hulu, sehingga terjadi suatu rangkaian dari rantai nilai dari kawasan produksi, ada distribusi, kemudian sampai kepada pasar. Itu sebagai satu kesatuan yang tidak terpisahkan. Nah, ini akan menarik kalau Bapak Ibu dan rekan-rekan mahasiswa bisa melakukan kajian, penelitian tentang rantai nilai itu dikaitkan dengan transformasi desa kota, rural urban transformation, sehingga nanti bisa mendorong pembangunan yang lebih berkelanjutan. Berikutnya. Knowledge management di dalam rural urban development. Berikutnya. Ini Bapak Ibu, jadi tadi sudah diingatkan, bukan hanya soal data, informasi, dan knowledge, itu menjadi bagian dari kebijakan. Kalau dulu kita masih mengandalkan kepada data-data yang bersifat tabular, dari BPS maupun dari dinas atau kementerian, maka bagaimana kita bisa memanfaatkan big data sebagai bagian di dalam pengembangan knowledge management. Sehingga nanti kebijakan itu didasarkan kepada bukan hanya data dan informasi yang lama, tapi berdasarkan pengetahuan yang dikembangkan memanfaatkan informasi yang lebih lengkap. Berikutnya. Nah, dalam kerangka itu maka dalam pengembangan desa kota, memperkuat desa kota, keterkaitan desa kota, transformasi itu, maka di sini mulai dari bagaimana pengumpulan data, diseminasi, sampai membangun budaya pengetahuan dan juga jejaring menjadi sangat penting. Nah, ini akan sangat menarik kalau kita amati nanti dengan studi di lapangan di beberapa kota atau kabupaten di Jawa Timur, bagaimana mereka memanfaatkan knowledge management di dalam memperkuat rantai nilai dari produksi sampai kepada pasar, dari desa sampai kepada pusat kota, sehingga nanti nilai tambah, akumulasi nilai tambah bisa dilakukan dan dinikmati oleh para petani di desa. Berikutnya. Nah, ini berikutnya juga bagaimana pemanfaatan teknologi di dalam knowledge management, sehingga nanti akan menjadi menarik soal culture, soal proses, soal praktis, itu akan dipengaruhi oleh siklus di dalam pengembangan manajemen pengetahuan. Berikutnya. Nah, ini kolaboratif riset itu juga penting. Tadi disampaikan soal skenario, bagaimana kita bisa melakukan simulasi secara statik maupun dinamik, dan juga melakukan suatu perkiraan, sehingga nanti pilihan-pilihan kebijakan itu baik berupa adopsi terhadap pendekatan berbasis pembangunan berkelanjutan maupun sustainable livelihood, juga adaptasi, mitigasi, dan investasi. Berikutnya. Nah, ini bagaimana Bappenas di dalam merencanakan itu saat ini sedang memperkuat kebijakan One Data, One Map Policy. Tentu saja ini akan menjadi dasar di dalam pengembangan manajemen pengetahuan dan juga dilengkapi dengan best practices, kemudian kajian-kajian, hasil pengendalian monitoring, kemudian juga menyangkut perencanaan, analisis dan peta risiko bencana, dan juga peta infrastruktur dan peta sumber daya. Kemudian Bappenas juga mengembangkan nasional dan juga regional development modeling, itu baik memanfaatkan data IRIO, Interregional Input Output, kemudian juga data spasial, data ekonomi makro, dan juga pendekatan berbasis kepada sistem dinamik. Kemudian juga pendekatan kualitatif analisis. Nah, ini penting bagi kita untuk memahami behavior atau perilaku masyarakat di setiap daerah, di setiap desa, di setiap kecamatan itu bisa berbeda. Berdasarkan semua itu kita menyusun skenario proyeksi baik jangka panjang 20 tahun, jangka menengah 5 tahun, dan jangka pendek atau short term selama 1 tahun. Kemudian berdasarkan semua itu, maka kita bisa menyiapkan transformasi sosial, budaya, dan ekonomi suatu daerah dengan melihat kebijakan dan strategi pembangunan, baik di tingkat nasional, wilayah maupun kawasan, kemudian juga keseimbangan antara pertumbuhan dan juga keadilan atau pemerataan, dengan menerapkan pendekatan adopsi, mitigasi, adaptasi maupun inovasi di dalam kebijakan. Nah, semua itu menjadi acuan di dalam penyusunan perencanaan pembangunan maupun perencanaan tata ruang dan juga rencana investasi sebagai satu kesatuan yang tidak terpisahkan. Jadi ini yang saya rangkum dari proses perencanaan di Bappenas. Berikutnya. Nah, kebijakan pembangunan desa dan kota berikutnya. Sebetulnya Bappenas sudah menyiapkan visi Indonesia 2045 yang meletakkan fondasi untuk keluar dari negara berpendapatan menengah menjadi negara berpendapatan tinggi. Berikutnya. Mas Dimas, saya masih berapa waktunya?
Tadi karena Prof. Jurafets melebihi dari yang direncanakan, maka kami berikan kesempatan yang sama, Pak. Jadi mungkin sekitar 20 menit lagi.
Baik. Ya. Nah, di sini ada 5 arahan Presiden soal sumber daya manusia, infrastruktur, penyederhanaan regulasi, kemudian birokrasi, dan transformasi ekonomi. Di sini ada 7 agenda pembangunan menyangkut ketahanan ekonomi, pengembangan wilayah, SDM berkualitas dan berdaya saing, pembangunan kebudayaan, infrastruktur, lingkungan, sumber daya dan bencana, dan juga dari sisi stabilitas politik, hukum, dan HAM. Berikutnya. Nah, pendekatan wilayah menjadi utama di dalam penyiapan rencana pembangunan jangka menengah nasional, kemudian didukung oleh transformasi ekonomi, infrastruktur, dan juga dari sisi pengelolaan lingkungan dan penguatan ketahanan bencana. Berikutnya. Untuk pembangunan desa, ini ada beberapa langkah yang kita gabungkan di dalam soal basic services, kemudian juga ada percepatan pembangunan untuk wilayah timur, terutama untuk Jawa, sehingga nanti selain mendorong pertumbuhan melalui pengembangan kawasan strategis, kita juga mengembangkan metropolitan area, kemudian juga building new capital city yang persiapan Kemudian di tingkat desa dan daerah tertinggal, kawasan perbatasan dan transmigrasi, maka kita upayakan ada akselerasi pembangunan untuk daerah-daerah 3T, tertinggal, terdepan, dan terluar. Berikutnya. Nah, dalam rangka RPJM 2020 dan 2024, program prioritas itu ada pendekatan berbasis wilayah, ada 7 wilayah pembangunan, wilayah Papua, Maluku, Nusa Tenggara, Jawa, Bali, Kalimantan, Sulawesi, dan Sumatera. Nah, untuk kegiatan prioritas selain urban development, itu juga menyangkut pembangunan desa, pembangunan daerah tertinggal, kawasan perbatasan, kawasan perdesaan, dan kawasan transmigrasi, serta penguatan dari sisi kelembagaan di tingkat daerah dan keuangan daerah. Berikutnya. Ini ada beberapa kegiatan yang menyangkut tadi penajaman terhadap pembangunan daerah tertinggal, perdesaan, dan sebagainya, terutama menyangkut penetapan kawasan-kawasan perdesaan prioritas nasional yang diharapkan bisa mendorong percepatan pembangunan kawasan perdesaan dan pembangunan di daerah. Itu termasuk juga pembangunan desa secara terpadu yang nanti terkait dengan upaya untuk mendorong keterkaitan desa kota secara lebih baik. Berikutnya. Nah, ini kawasan-kawasan yang menjadi target di dalam pembangunan desa, itu bagaimana kita mengurangi ketertinggalan dan juga dari sisi kemiskinan di pedesaan, sehingga nanti istilahnya bukan dalam pengertian urbanisasi penduduk desa pindah ke kota, tapi urbanisasi dalam pengertian kemajuan desa mendekati kondisi kota. Jadi lebih banyak kepada pembangunan di desa, bukan pembangunan di kota. Berikutnya. Nah, ini persebaran untuk kawasan perdesaan prioritas nasional atau rural area development sebagai bagian dari upaya menciptakan pusat-pusat pertumbuhan di sekitar pinggiran perkotaan. Kawasan pinggiran ini akan penting supaya nanti bisa menjadi penggerak ekonomi daerah. Berikutnya. Nah, spatial plan itu menyangkut bagaimana kita melihat tata ruang desa kota, kawasan perdesaan, sebagai bagian dari kebijakan. Berikutnya. Agak cepat saja, ini saya lewati saja. Berikutnya. Nah, perhitungan paradigma yang kita anut bersama Kementerian Tata Ruang, Agraria dan Tata Ruang, itu paradigma pembangunan kawasan perdesaan yang berkelanjutan. Sehingga nanti pendekatan berbasis konservasi, kemudian juga dari segi mitigasi terhadap perubahan iklim, kemudian local resources, kemudian juga keterkaitan desa kota, itu menjadi penting di dalam menyiapkan tata ruang kawasan perdesaan. Berikutnya. Ini kaitan dengan detail spatial plan. Ada beberapa hal yang ini terlalu teknis, nanti saya lewati saja, Bapak Ibu. Skip. Berikutnya. Nah, ini yang kita lihat bagaimana mengkaitkan antara wilayah, bagian wilayah pengembangan, itu ada untuk masalah konservasi lingkungan, kemudian pusat pelayanan dan pusat pengembangan ekonomi di kawasan perdesaan. Berikutnya. Ini ilustrasi bagaimana suatu tata ruang di distrik atau kecamatan Sukasari, sehingga nanti antara keseimbangan antara pengembangan pelayanan dasar, baik pendidikan, kesehatan, kemudian infrastruktur, dan juga konservasi, itu dilakukan supaya nanti mengurangi risiko bencana maupun risiko terhadap eksploitasi sumber daya di daerah. Berikutnya. Nah, kemudian dari sisi mitigasi terhadap bencana, berikutnya. Ini dengan mempertimbangkan kepentingan ekonomi, kemudian kesejahteraan masyarakat dan juga konservasi lingkungan, maka strategi pembangunan itu harus lebih aman, lebih berkelanjutan, dan juga lebih inklusif Berikutnya. Nah, ini bagaimana kita melihat disaster management mulai dari mitigasi, kemudian kesiapsiagaan atau preparedness, sampai kepada bagaimana disaster management baik pada saat bencana maupun pada saat rehabilitasi rekonstruksi pasca bencana. Berikutnya. Ini yang kita lihat upaya kita untuk memperkuat ketahanan menghadapi bencana, terutama dari sisi pre-disaster, sehingga nanti soal housing, soal tata ruang, soal lingkungan itu mestinya harus kita siapkan dengan sebaik-baiknya. Belajar dari kondisi terjadinya banjir di Garut, kemudian juga terjadinya bencana gempa di Malang dan daerah lainnya. Berikutnya. Nah, ini kita juga mempertimbangkan berbagai komitmen global, terutama dari sisi SDGs, Sustainable Development Goal, kemudian Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, kemudian juga rencana pembangunan jangka menengah, kemudian juga rencana induk penanggulangan bencana, dan sebagainya. Berikutnya, ini cepat saja, saya lewati saja, global commitment, kemudian ada beberapa prioritas berikutnya. Nah, untuk memperkuat resiliensi, ketahanan, berikutnya, maka di sini kita mencoba untuk reform atau strengthening disaster resilience system. Ada 5 area, maaf ini belum ditranslate, ini salah copy ya. Berikutnya. Nah, yang pertama adalah integrated one disaster data information, kemudian integrated early warning system, kemudian masalah literasi, edukasi, dan budaya sadar bencana dengan pendekatan pemberdayaan masyarakat, kemudian kolaborasi dengan pendekatan pentahelix, dan juga integrated disaster investment and funding. Jadi bagaimana pembiayaan secara terintegrasi, baik dalam pra bencana, pada saat bencana, maupun pada saat pasca bencana. Nah, ini roadmap ini kita siapkan sampai 2024, sehingga nanti perlu ada beberapa penajaman di dalam tahun 2022, 2023, sampai 2024. Berikutnya. Nah, dalam kerangka itu, beberapa kementerian lembaga itu punya kegiatan yang bisa dilakukan sesuai dengan 5 area strategi tadi. Berikutnya. Nah, promoting collaboration and partnership to strengthen risk and resilience in rural and urban area. Jadi ini ada beberapa hal, terutama menyangkut tadi bagaimana integrated one disaster data, integrated early warning system, literacy, education and culture on disaster risk, and also collaborative institution and integrated disaster investment and funding dengan berbagai sumber pendanaan. Berikutnya. Nah, ini terakhir disaster management strategy dengan pendekatan pentahelix, tadi sudah disebut-sebut oleh Profesor Joe, bagaimana sinergi antara pemerintah daerah, perguruan tinggi, dan lembaga riset, pelaku usaha, organisasi masyarakat, kemudian juga political party, dan juga media. Nah, semua itu adalah ada 5 key factors: social capital, knowledge and human capital, natural and environmental capital, financial capital, and physical capital. Itu adalah bagian bagaimana sinergi itu dilakukan untuk mengelola 5 aspek tadi, 5 capital, sehingga nanti mendorong transformasi desa kota yang lebih terintegrasi, lebih berkelanjutan, dan lebih memberikan kesejahteraan masyarakat. Nah, tugas pemerintah adalah bagaimana menyiapkan itu, dan tugas perguruan tinggi adalah bagaimana melakukan conducting basic research and also leading research and develop knowledge management with the local government, business actors, and also with the media and local community. So, terima kasih. Thank you very much. Mudah-mudahan bisa memberikan informasi. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih Pak Sumedi. Thank you very much for a very rich presentation, which in my opinion shows and reflects the actual reality about there's so many things that we need to think about if we combine urban development and disaster risk management. So yeah, again, so it is the hardest job of a moderator or a chair person to conclude on the so many useful materials only in a couple of sentences. So I'll try my best to give a shot in here. So yes, from Pak Sumedi's presentation, it reflects that the issue of urban and rural transformation becomes a center or an important issue that now we are all, especially the national system of planning, is aware about. So we, not just because of the magnitude of the problem itself, but rural urban transformation becomes an indicator for so many other things in terms of bringing change in the way we construct policies. So like perhaps how rural urban transformation or the rural and urban gap becomes an indicator of achievement in development. And another component is about how rural urban transformation can extract some advantages, like the comparative advantages, the competitive advantages, and also the collaborative advantages. And then there comes the issue of disaster risk management. I think I try to combine two very important data presented by Pak Sumedi. So first is, Joe presented in his one of his slides about the condition of Indonesia. We are rapidly urbanizing. In fact, Indonesia is one of the nations considered as more urbanizing, and the process itself is happens in a very rapid pace. Well, Pak Sumedi shows about the reality of that we lived in a continent, the geographical challenge of Indonesia, where we faced the challenge of imminent disasters comprising of earthquakes, tsunamis, and so on. So in this reality, the rapid urban development and the reality of that we are living side by side with natural disasters brings up the ideas about change in the way we plan for the disaster mitigation, which includes a strong collaborations. And also, I'll just quote in one of the slides, it's about the disaster resilient system, which consists of integrated one disaster data, integrated early warning systems, the literacy or the education context, the culture of the disaster awareness, and so on, collaborations of institutions, and of course the integrated disaster investments and funding. So yeah, this is the very few that I can summarize. Of course, there are lots more that we can take as lessons from both presentation. But now I would like to open opportunities for questions. So I'm not sure if it would be great if you can use the raise hand feature in Zoom, and of course to mention your names, your institution, or if you're a student, where are you studying at, and so on. So the first opportunity I will give to three persons. Okay. 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 I have my question on my own actually. So I would like to address this to both, to Joe Rivas and Pak Sumendi. I mean, considering the way we plan, I mean, if we talk about foresight and we talk about how we demonstrate in the actual practice of planning, we see that, yes, of course, most of how we predict the future is about, we've done it in a more conventional way. We project populations and then we allocate or we identify the available spaces, and then we think about how to allocate these needs into the spaces. I mean, how possible our national planning system adopts a more advanced, I mean, prediction of the future. I mean, I've done this synergistic foresight myself, part of it in 2019, and of course there was challenge about time, about the workshop. I mean, considering if like the length of constructing a spatial planning policy takes up, oh no, sorry, there is very limited time that these projects are to be done only within the 6 or 8 months period. How are we possible in this very short period of time of constructing policies? Can we apply an advanced method of foresight and so on?
Is that a question to you? Yeah, go on.
Yes,
Professor?
maybe. Yeah, so, yeah, because I'm asking for the practical side. Maybe Pak Sumendi could, yeah, and then Joe can have a response on that. Thank you.
Okay, Bapenas try to improve planning process. So not we try to first to prioritize, to make priority with we call mature project. So every preparation for the mature project, we try to involve all line ministry and also invite local government to decide which output or activities should be put on the annual plan. This is one thing. The second one, we try to utilize not only data from the PPS or from the line ministries, but we try to utilize also big data and also data from the field by we work together with the university. Actually, every years we conduct research with a local university, and based on 3 aspects. One is the policy direction from the president. The second one is based on technocratic, based on analytical and so on. And the third one is based on the aspiration and also from the field, from the local government. And we add with the big data as part of preparation for the next development plan. By using this approach, we also try to use information system we call Krishna. So all information put in the system, so everybody can access to the information and also to assess whether the project are eligible or useful for the people. But this is from the point of view of government or technocratic approach. Another decision is belong to the parliament, or we call political decision. Even though the government preparing excellent plan, but the political decision is different, so the budget is different. This is not only in the national level, but also local level. DPRD or local parliament is very strong in terms of budget decision. I think we try to improve on the technocratic approach, but we have to also to consider the political decision. In response to Professor Jurafet's question regarding land, Ministry of Agrarian try to improve their system by adopting information system on the land administration. This is the first one. The second one, we develop land reform by facilitating to local farmer without land and try to distribute the land with several criteria. This is the second policy. The third policy, we try to strengthen the, we call coordination or synergy by setting up the, we call gugus tugas task force for agrarian reform at national level, at provincial level, and also at municipality level, so that the local government and people can communicate to solve regarding the land problem. But this is, I think, we need more effort to strengthen this task force as part of solving the conflict between the farmer with the company and so on. I think we need more effort on strengthening this task force. I think itu Mas Dimas.
Yes, thank you, Pak Sumedi. Joe, do you have any?
Sure.
Response? Yes.
Well, thank you for a good question. This is something, yes, we're all finding our way through difficult times, because your question is very practical. You said, okay, this foresight thing is very nice, building all these synergies, very nice, but it will all take a lot of time and money to pay the staff, planners, etc. So what can be done? So what we look for is to say, okay, this is not only government, this is governance, the wider collection of all the stakeholders, and we look for ways to bring these people and these organizations into some form of discussion or dialogue. And then we look for ways to build synergies. And this was my other question to Professor Andono. Now, does this all take a long time? And you might say, yes, if you start from zero and sets up the whole thing, and yes, it will take some time. If you have a process which is running, which continues all the time, in other words, a new form of collaborative governance. And we can see this in some places around the world. In our global project, PERISEE, some of the case studies, not all, but some, have advanced forms of collaborative governance, meaning forums, discussions with stakeholders, a flow of technical information and big data where we have it, but also discussion on what people really want, what are their goals and their visions, and if there is argument or difference, okay, so we take some time. Now, I asked in the chat the question about the farmers in India. I don't know enough about Indonesia to say, is this similar thing in Indonesia, but it's in many parts of the world. Should the farmers in India protest? They see, yes, these reforms will bring, corporates into their livelihoods, their farms, their communities, which they see as very destructive. So how can we bring synergy into that situation of conflict? And does that take a very, very long time and cost a lot of money, as you say? So, well, I'm working with partners in India, not, on various problems, not just this one, but to say, okay, maybe there is a forward way for everyone to get what they need and want. And I think this also comes back to Professor Andono's earlier points to say, yes, you start with collaborative advantage in economic theory, then you move to competitive advantage, but then further, there is collaborative advantage. So in the Indian example, we can say, yes, we think the agroecology approach is something which is going to be benefits to everybody. Now, not so simple as that, but just to say, yes, with that big idea, then we can go back to our forums and our producer cooperatives and our governance task force and so on, and say, hey, look, we have some bigger idea. And people think generally it's a good idea. So then let's talk about the details and who can get what they need out of this big idea. So I think, I hope that answers some of your question.
Yes, thanks, Joe. So we've got... okay.
Let me share one slide, Mas Dimas.
Oh, yeah, sure, Pak Sumedi, monggo.
Yeah. True that land reform is one aspect is asset reform. This is for the land as asset, and access reform. Access reform is to provide support for the farmer to support their activities. So there are, of course, we need more support from local government so that the farmer can not only receive the land, but how to utilize to develop their economic. So there are many best practices that we can visit to check in the field. But of course, there are many problems with the land reform, not implemented smoothly, but there are many best practices. Now, Bappenas and Ministry of Agrarian try to replicate the best practices into different best practices in West Java. But of course, there are many in Central Java and East Java and so on. So this is the first foundation for improving land management, land asset management. Again, this is not only from the point of view of asset reform, but improving access to infrastructure, access to economic support and facility, and access to training and so on for the farmer. That's all. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Sumedi. So yes, very interesting answers. So now I would like to invite, yes, so there are 4 people in the queue. So I would call out based on order. So my colleague, Pak Adi Pandang, will have the chance. After that, we'll have Marco Juan. After that, followed with Anissa Putri, and then Bu Ismu. Yes, Pak Adi.
All right, thank you, Pak Dimas. Okay, my questions are referred to the Pak Sumedi.
Pak Adi, name, institution.
All right.
Yeah.
Sorry, my name is Adi Pandang Udono. I'm a lecturer, one of the lecturer in urban general planning in Brawijaya University. I interest with your slide regarding the big data and then the data integrations. To be honest, I already conducted many researches since 2017 about the one spatial data, and then what to be honest until today, since presidential decree 39 2019, Perpres 39 2019 terkait dengan satu data Indonesia. That's mentioned that there are 3 types of data will be integrated: the geospatial data, statistical data, and financial data. And then, so far, in spatial data, spatial data in local area, it's not ready yet for going to the big data and advanced analysis. But I just want to know how the strategies of the Bappenas to integrate the data, about the financial data, statistical data, and then geospatial data. Because when we talk about the data, not only about the data standard, but also the policy, about the governance, about the organization and human resource. Thank you, Pak Sumedi.
Yeah, Pak Sumedi, do you prefer to hear all of the questions and then answer it at once, or do you want to respond individually?
It's better to collect all question and then answer the question.
Okay, thank you. So I'll give now the chance to Marco Juan Aristo.
Okay, thanks for the opportunity. My name is Marco Juan Aristo. I'm from University of Brawijaya. So I have a question for Professor Joe Ravets. First of all, sorry for my bad English or my lackness of information. So my question is there any big difference on the method and theory in the foresight things between the expertise right now? As we can see, the world are facing the pandemics, which is unpredicted moments. So is there any difference between the method and theory because the unpredicted moments? Professor, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, Anissa.
Okay, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Anissa Putri Cecilia Haq. I'm from Urban and Regional Planning, Brawijaya University. I want to ask a question to the question is, we know that many cities in Indonesia, especially in Jakarta and Surabaya.
To who are you addressing the question?
I want to ask question to Professor Ju.
Okay.
Okay. My question is, we know that many cities in Indonesia, especially in Jakarta and Surabaya, have a poor planning and also had a lot of permanent buildings. There is also a discourse that Jakarta will change in a few years. So my question is, then how to change the planning of a capital city in order to improve the quality of the city in the future? Thank you.
Thank you. And Bu Ismu, monggo.
Thank you. Good evening. Good morning, Professor Joe, and good evening, Pak Sumedi. Thank you, Dimas. I would like to address my question to both of you. Thank you very much for the very great lecture today. And if I could notice, firstly, we face very rapid change. The second one, and the importance of inclusiveness on how to bring all together in a better way. And then my very big concern is related to that. It seems that I become more understand that here the role of people with all type of capital that they have are truly agent of the development change. That so far I become like more believe about this one, but somehow they are so diverse. So then my question is, I'm really curious on how to bring them together to lessen the gap between actors in rural and urban areas. Also, could we possibly speed up the synergy of collaborative institution through online meeting. It's a kind of what we face right now. That's Professor Joe from Manchester in the morning, and we are here in the evening, could meet together in order to have better dialogue at all costs through this one. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Yusmo. So I'll quickly summarize the question. So from Pak Adi Pandang Yudono, for Pak Sumedi, so how to integrate from these factors to one spatial data. And from Marco to Joe Roberts, it's about the theories and methods of foresight. Are there any differences in the application and so on? Anissa Putri, to Joe Roberts, Jakarta is going to sink. What shall we do? Bu Ismu, to both speakers, is about, well, we realize the differences, the gaps and so on, the interests of actors. How could we best bring this together? Can we speed up collaborations through online meeting and so on? Says, thank you, the time is yours.
For responding to Mas Adi Pandang, the government already implementing one map, one data policy. So Bappenas is one of the hosts for the planning data that include one map policy together with the Badan Informasi Geospasial, try to how to improve the map. One thing that there is a silo between each ministry. For example, Ministry of Home Affairs with PPS regarding the codification of location. Location mean village, district, municipality, and also provincial. So this our effort is try to select the core information or core data that have to be to put together as one of data. And the second one is to collect data that are mobile. For example, metropolitan area data. For example, from Jakarta and Depok, we try to prepare for the policy, for example, for the transportation, but we have to know where is the passengers, from where, from Depok or from Bogor or from other municipality, and then calculating the numbers. Now, Bappenas try to improve the metropolitan data area. As for the one data policy, PPS is one of the hosts for data publication. The second one is Ministry of Finance for budget data, and Bappenas is for the planning data. So we try to tomorrow or Friday, we will have a meeting to discuss how to accelerate the implementation of one data policy, including by involving the local government, and also at local level, for example, in Bapeda with the other dinas. And also we have to work very hard how to coordinate and manage the data and information at local level. This is our effort, try to accelerate the implementation of one data policy. As for the Bu Ismu, last time I explained that young generation by using information technology. They try to help a farmer or fisherman as part of promoting and marketing the production of farmer or fisherman. There are many young generation manage application system as part of how to connecting the farmer with the market. So this is as part of digital transformation, so that involving the farmer into the market. But of course, not only that, but we need to improve the capacity of the farmer, improve the knowledge, and also how to manage their asset, and also how to propose capital accumulation within the farmer or the fisherman. So balancing between production, consumption, and also saving, and also asset management at fishermen or at the farmers. And acceleration or speeding the transformation, of course, involvement of university, young generation, and also the private company or pelaku usaha and the banking sector to provide more credit to farmers so that they can improve and increase their economic capacity. I think that's all.
Thank you, Pak Sumedi.
Yes, thank you. Joe, please. Your time. Yeah.
So the question on foresight and the pandemic, good question. I put a couple of links in the chat. One is my firm and the other is a workshop in a couple of weeks, free, no cost, and you're very welcome to sign up if you want to take this forward. What are we, and just to say, this workshop is now the end of a year of debate and research on the pandemic and the role of foresight in this situation. And well, we all know the pandemic, it's changed many things, and it has brought to the surface some of the most negative things in our system, but also many positive things. So all the time we're asking ourselves the question, how do we manage the negative and move towards the positive in terms of, economic transformation, social cohesion and inclusion, so to say, and all of these nice things that we all want. So how can foresight help? Well, this is then a test for the foresight community, which is a global community, as I said, and to say, okay, can we raise our game? Can we improve our methods and tools? Can we make this more quick and easy to do? So we don't have 12 months or 2 years for a big project, the situation is urgent right now. So we've been working on these things. Now, so different things come up, and it's not, I cannot put them all into just a few words, but to say some people are working on the social and community side. My friend in India is working with rural people in Rajasthan, Western India, on a foresight approach, but she is starting with the stories that they tell in the villages. What stories do they tell? What about their future? What are their hopes and fears? Let's get all these onto the table, and then we can start to make a plan or start to imagine some future in which everybody is included. Other people are looking at big data. My colleagues in Moscow do this with a big data analytic system. And thirdly, some people in Europe and North America are looking at how to do collaborative governance with this foresight approach in the situation of the pandemic. And also my colleagues in Manchester are working on a scheme in Manchester, which has a high number of people who say no to the vaccination. They say, no, thanks, I don't want it. This is a problem because then, you know, the situation will continue. So how do we reach these people? How do we bring them into a process of inclusion and empowerment and all these great things? And again, there is no simple answer, but there is a way to work on these things. You have neighborhood, local events, you have exhibitions, you bring in the music people and the children's activities and the schools and the health centers and the workplaces and so on and so on. So all of these things are then involved. And then we can start to see ways through the pandemic which are positive, not just fighting the virus and let's get back to normal, but more to say, yeah, actually, we want to transform our local centres. We want to make our streets, urban areas more livable and less polluted, and so on and so on. So that is more or less a quick summary. If I can just address the question from Anisa, how to improve planning of Jakarta for quality of life and sustainability. This is such a big question. And I'm sure no one has the complete answer to this. But again, we can say, okay, so in my drawings and slides, you know, you have seen just a few ideas how to do things at the local level and how that might scale to the city level, how that might then create positive urban-rural linkages, etc. If you then scale to a mega city of the size of Jakarta, I don't know Jakarta, but I know a few other mega cities, then you say, okay, so we need a process and a way to scale up the synergy thing. The process of making synergies at the local level can scale up to higher levels. Now, I mentioned the Garden City of 1901, which is where I started my career on this. Well, not in 1901, but just to say, okay, so that drawing, which was in somewhere in this book here, I think, the City Region book, it's a fractal drawing. In other words, you can zoom in and you will see these, this structure, which is, a geometric pattern. And you can zoom in and see it at a very, very local level. You can also zoom out and see it at a city level or a mega city agglomeration level, and so on and so on. So this does not solve all your problems on, 1, 2, 3, but it is a way of working which then we have to follow because there is very little alternative. Well, maybe the alternative is to move the whole city to Kalimantan, but as far as I know, only the government functions are moving and everybody else stays in Jakarta, right? But I'm sure it's a long story. Okay, so over to Professor Andono.
Yes, thanks, Joe. So yeah, unfortunately, we are running out of time now. So if some of you might still have questions to address, you can you can put it in the chat box, and maybe the committee will record it and they will happily forward it to both our notable speakers of this afternoon. But yeah, before I return this to the Master of Ceremony, maybe just 20 seconds of what lessons can we get together for today. So problems comes from an accumulation of interconnected aspects of life. But the problem is the way we solve problems, we tend to do it in silos. So we do need change now by means of collaborations, collective intelligence, to make sure that all of these problems are addressed in an appropriate way. So that is my very few words, which part of them I took from Joe's idea about collective intelligence. And thank you for Professor Joe Ravetz and Pak Sumedi for not just for the time. I know but you both are very busy, but most of all, your knowledge that you were willing to share to all of us this afternoon. And thank you. So I return this to the MC. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you so much, Mr. Dimas, for leading the session, as well as Professor Joe Ravetz and Mr. Sumedi for allowing us to have a warm discussion and valuable knowledge regarding spatial development and rural transformation. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we now arrived at the end of today's event. But before we officially ended our meeting, I'd like to remind all the participants to fill the attendance form. Once again, thank you so much for all your willingness to participate and eagerness to learn from today's event. I hope you all have a very good health. Stay safe wherever you are, and until we meet again. I am Kathleen Miraberta. Thank you, and see you on another occasion.
Thank you, Mas Dimas, Professor Joe.
Pak Sumedi, thank you.
Bu semua.
Terima kasih Pak
Sumedi. Pak Sumedi. Thank you
Amazing.
very much, Joe.
Yeah, very rich
Thank
discussion.
you, Prof. Joe.
Good to meet.
Pak Nyoman, terima kasih.
Ya, makasih Pak Medi. Masih ada besok ya Pak?
Ya.
Insya Allah. Matur nuwun Pak Medi. Ngapunten.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe.
Stay safe. Bye for now.